Okay, I see it's 5 o'clock. We'll call the June 25th, 2025 meeting of the Transportation Commission to order. Sherry, would you read the instructions, please?
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We are going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To the members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sherry. Aiden, if you call the roll, please.
Sure thing. William Olkovich. Sean O'Brien.
Present.
Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford.
Present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney is excused tonight. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Jeffs. Pepe Barros is excused tonight. Chris McCahill.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Clemes.
Here.
Lynn Olson.
Present.
And Kaylee Jameson is also excused tonight.
Okay, we'll watch for other folks to see if they join the meeting late. So Lynn, with the folks that are gone tonight, you would clearly be able to make motions and vote this evening. So did everybody have an opportunity to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Harold?
I would move approval of the minutes.
Bill?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I see Denise has joined us. Alder Martinez Rutherford.
I would like to abstain.
Okay. Chris?
I'll also abstain.
Okay. Other than Alder Martinez Rutherford and Chris McCahill, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote. If anybody else wishes to vote no or abstain, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion's carried. And I see Alder Olkovich has joined us as well. Okay. Do we have any? We have, I see in a late email from you, Aiden, that there are some emails that we received with comments for items not on the agenda, although that may be related to the ADA transition plan possibly. But they're saved under item 1. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Did we have anybody who registered to speak under item 1?
We do. Yeah, a couple people.
Under item 1?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Why don't we go ahead with that then?
So first we have Mike Tarby of Williamson Street. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, folks. Are you able to hear me all right?
We can.
Okay, perfect. All right, I guess my 3 minutes starts now. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Tarby. I live on the 900 block of Williamson Street. I'm also a member of the Marquette Neighborhood Association, as well as a member of Strong Towns Madison, which is a local neighborhood organization focused on bettering the city's urban environment through housing, transportation, land use, those sorts of focuses. The reason I've come to you folks tonight is regarding a letter that you should have received in your email as well from the Marquette Neighborhood Association regarding some traffic safety and speed concerns on both Williamson and Jennifer Streets. I won't go through the content of the letter, though I'd encourage you folks to take a look at that. We were recently joined by traffic engineering and Tom Moore, who had joined our neighborhood association following a vehicle collision on Williamson Street. It was a very productive conversation. I'm very grateful for the city's ability to take time out of their night and chat with concerned neighbors. What I would like to take the remainder of my time to just sort of discuss here, we've outlined some requests in that letter, and I hope Transportation Commission takes the opportunity through those requests to sort of reinforce the priorities that Transportation Commission and that the City of Madison has when it comes to transportation. In my mind, there's sort of 4 aspects that we can choose to focus on. That is speed, so moving folks as quickly as possible. That's safety. That is volume, so moving as many folks as we can, and then finally cost. So doing all those things in a fiscally prudent manner. I'd like to ask each of you to sort of rank those things in your mind in your sort of own order of priorities. To me, safety should be our top priority, followed by cost. I think we should be engaging in projects that are fiscally sound from the city's perspective. Third, I think, should be volume, trying to move as many folks as we can, and then speed should be our last priority. So when it comes to the requests that we've kind of shared with Transportation Commission through that letter, I would ask us to sort of reflect those values and how we approach the situation. I'd like us to sort of take these opportunities where we can improve safety in a manner that's minimally costly to the city, and promotes a safer environment, not just for folks traveling via car, but folks traveling via foot or by bike, in a way that also effectively uses street space and the public right of way. So I just ask that we take the opportunity to sort of reinforce those values and show folks in the neighborhood that's where our priorities lie. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Does anyone have a question for Mike? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you very much, Mike. Who else do we have in?
Next, we have Bryant Novinska Lewis of Williamson Street and representing Marquette Neighborhood Association.
Hello,
Go ahead,
everyone.
Brian.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Bryant Novinska-Lois. On behalf of the Marquette Neighborhood Association, we express our urgent concern regarding ongoing traffic safety issues in our community, which are laid out in that letter that Mike had mentioned that we submitted later last week, and highlighted by the recent crash in the Mother Fool's Coffee Shop, which is now the 3rd incident in recent history affecting this local business. The statistics are pretty alarming. Williamson Street has recorded 122 crashes between 2020 and 2024, which is a staggering 165% more than Monroe Street, which is similar in design and activity. This disparity raises serious concerns for the safety of our residents and local businesses. A recent speed study conducted by a concerned mother with a radar gun revealed that 84% of vehicles on Jennifer Street, which receives traffic from Williamson, were speeding, underscoring the urgent need for action. We believe it is crucial to conduct updated traffic modeling for Williamson and Jennifer Streets prior to the John Nolan reconstruction to reflect current conditions and changing traffic patterns since the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, we urge the Commission to revisit the trial elimination of the rush hour traffic lanes on Williamson Street as supported by the Vision Zero action plan and once supported by the city itself in 2022. Additionally, we implementing traffic calming measures such as curb bump outs, raised intersections, and protected planters will help create a safer environment for transit riders, pedestrians, cyclists, and families who rely on these streets. That number one safety priority that Mike had mentioned. We believe that by implementing these measures, the City of Madison would encourage the use of traveling by means other than a single occupancy vehicle, saving the city on expensive infrastructure costs and generating revenue for Metro, while also meeting its goal of preventing avoidable damage, injury, and/or death on our roadways. We respectfully request your immediate attention to this pressing issue that has gone on for quite some time. Our community deserves safer streets that prioritizes the well-being of all people, not just drivers. And I hope that we can work together to make Jennifer and Williamson Street safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Does anybody have a comment or question? Lynn, go ahead.
I want to thank both of those folks for coming to our meeting today. I could not agree more with you. And again, my sincere appreciation for bringing it to our attention.
Thanks, Lynn. Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. I just looked at my inbox and I don't think I received that letter.
It came out right before the meeting started, right, Aiden?
Oh, today?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
So I think we'll all have to take a look at that information, and at our next TC agenda meeting, I can talk with Tom more about this and how best to come back to TC to discuss it. Is that all you had then, Bill? Okay. Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thank you very much. Did we have anybody else, Aiden?
The last person doesn't wish to speak, but it was Courtney Lindell of Jennifer Street, who did send in a public comment.
Okay. As I said, we'll take a look at that information that was distributed right before the meeting started and look to have a conversation at a future meeting. And we very much appreciate you coming this evening and sharing that information with us. And again, we'll meet with Tom and get updated from him about the meetings that he's had with you, etc. Okay, so that's all we have under item 1.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Aiden. Are there any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands. We have one item proposed for the consent agenda this evening. I don't believe we have anybody registered to speak on it, do we, Aiden?
We do not. Nope.
Okay. Does anybody wish that to be separated? Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, see none. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda? Robbie?
Move item 2, which I think is the only thing on the consent agenda.
It is, yes, thanks. There's a motion on the consent agenda. Is there a second? Harold?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Assuming no discussion, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or does have something else they'd wish to ask. Okay. Seeing no hands, the motion is carried unanimously. Okay, next, we had there was some sort of glitch in Legistar and referral on a council item did not make it onto our original agenda. We were actually not aware of it. So with the way amended agendas work, it got added as item number 12. So unless there's an objection from any of the members, I would like to move item 12 forward and take it now, since it is a common council item referred to TC for action and review, and we would normally handle it at this point in the agenda. Any objections? Okay, seeing none, We have Dr. Karen Kapusta-Pofel, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly there, Karen, who's our Common Council Chief of Staff here this evening to make a presentation and be available for questions. Karen, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Oh, I echoed. What happened? Okay, it's okay. I am going to share my screen.
You're not echoing here, so you're good.
Oh, wonderful. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen in a minute, and I'm just going to be presenting I'm going to do an abridged version of the presentation that is available to you all as an attachment into this file in Legistar. And again, if you look in the file, you also see the current code of conduct, the proposed changes to the code of conduct, and this presentation as well for your review. I'm going to assume folks have had a chance to at least review the materials, and then so I'll go quickly, and then if you have any questions or you'd like me to go back to a slide, I will be happy to do so. I also wanted to let you all know that we're collecting feedback from all of the committees that this has been referred to. We're going to be packaging that and providing that feedback to the alders. So I thank you in advance for any feedback you have written or provided here in this forum. All right, now let me try to use the computer. All right. Okay. All right, I think that did work. Okay.
It worked.
Great. I have not been having good luck this week at all with my technology. All right. Thank you. Very briefly, a bit of a refresher on some things about the code of conduct that's currently in place. So what I'm referring to here is the Elected and Appointed Official Code of Ethical Conduct and Sexual Harassment Appendix. The code was originally adopted by Council in January of 2023. The Sexual Harassment Appendix was adopted in July of 2024. It provides shared expectations guidelines for elected and appointed officials, including members of city boards, commissions, and committees. As a reminder, boards, commissions, and committees are required by resolution to put the code on their agenda annually for discussion. Don't worry, I've found that has not that a lot of BCCs were not aware, so this is actually giving me an opportunity as well to raise awareness about that for you all. And then sometimes there are questions about which code applies to which folks, and cities, as you I'm sure are all familiar, city staff are also governed by the APMs, including APM 3-5 and 2-33, the harassment policy and the general work rules policies. Okay. The existing policy provides expectations for conduct, prohibits bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination. That information should look familiar to any city staff who have undergone our APM 3-5 training. It encourages informal conflict resolution when appropriate and available or possible. It describes the reporting and investigating process for sexual harassment complaints on elected and appointed officials, and outlines some possible sanctions for violation. Okay, so as I mentioned, the council has referred these proposed changes to a number of committees, boards and commissions to receive your feedback. And so we are in the process of doing that with you here. Now, again, I don't think I'm going to read all the language in the slides. I'm happy to go back or, anything you'd need. But just to give you a sense of what the proposed changes are, there's additional general expected conduct language. These are 3 examples of that. There is a section directed specifically on conduct towards city staff. 2 of the points there are referring to staff by their title or formal salutation, followed by the individual's last name in public meetings when first introduced. This is something that I believe the full council excuse me, does try to adhere to, and the council executive, Common Council Executive Committee as well. It looks like Director so-and-so is here to give a presentation about such and such, and then after that, you're free to use Director so-and-so's first name. All employee performance issues forwarded to HR. A section on conduct towards members of the public, reminding elected and appointed officials that members of the public are, are here to give their feedback and testify, and we need to sort of respect their presence and treat them with care when speaking publicly. And there's a section on conduct towards the media, differentiation between the individual and the individual as a member of the committee, and additional expanded guidance on using point of order. As I'm sure you're all familiar, point of order is a standard Robert's Rules tool. This just elaborates a bit more on when you can use, how do you use point of order to address an issue that a member may identify as a potential code of conduct issue. More information about conflict resolution. And then this is less for the BCCs, but pretty significant for the council if they choose to adopt these changes. Right now, censure of an alder is done by the council by a simple majority vote, and it can be introduced by any alder. This proposes a hearing process and some restrictions on things like how many you need 2 alders to introduce, 2 alder sponsors to introduce a censure resolution, etc. So it outlines a detailed process for censure. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, in addition to the council receiving your recommendation or your feedback on this, particularly, I also wanted to open up the opportunity for folks to discuss anything you'd like us to know as we're thinking about BCC improvements and related to this. So here are some discussion questions. In your experience as a BCC member, what are the most common conduct related challenges in committee meetings? Are there any topics related to members of BCCs you'd like covered in the policy that aren't? Do you have any questions or comments about the existing policy? And I'll also remind you that I am my email is on. I know that's not fun. Okay, my email is here on the first slide, and certainly staff can help you reach out to me if needed, if you think of anything you'd like to provide. All right, that is all I will say. I'll open the floor.
Comments or questions? Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I saw it at Board of Public Works. Can you say something about the requirement to have the code of conduct on the agenda annually for discussion? Like, what's the intent behind that?
Yes, so that is an existing requirement today. And the idea when the council passed that resolution approving or adopting the original code of conduct is that it would serve as a bit of a training opportunity or discussion, open up a discussion opportunity for each committee, board, or commission to talk about things that might be relevant to that code and to familiarize or refamiliarize themselves with the content of that code. Currently, we don't have a required training for BCC members on issues that are in the code. And so in the meantime, asking the BCCs to just put it in front of themselves, remind everyone that it exists, and maybe have discussions that are, maybe it'll prompt some discussion if necessary.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, thank you for mentioning the training and the different BCCs have different onboarding processes. It seems like that might be a good way to insert this rather than requiring it on an agenda, where then it might just end up on the consent agenda and not have the intended purpose, I feel like. And it might also be, it might be on the agenda 1 year after a new member joined the BC, or like 11 months after a new BCC member joined, and only then do they get that content. So maybe that's something to consider. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Harold. Anybody else have any other comments? I want to just follow up on what Harold was just talking about. I plan to bring our annual work plan back to TC and add that item into it. So it's actually in our work plan for this annual review. And on page 4, it does say elected or appointed city officials upon entering office or being appointed as a BCC member shall be provided a copy of this policy and shall acknowledge receipt. Failure to acknowledge receipt does not exempt an individual from the requirements of the policy. So they do intend for everybody who's new, either elected or appointed, to get the policy and be made aware of it. And I personally, and I sent Karen some written comments, some too technical to talk about, but this was one of them. And then I think that we should add in or consider putting in something along the lines of each BCC shall discuss this policy as an item on its agenda annually, right after that section where it talks about you should get it when you're newly appointed. So instead of having to try and search out a resolution that dates back to January 2023, and frankly that I missed seeing, and I was not aware that we were supposed to be doing this on an annual basis. So we haven't been, but we're doing it today, and it'll get added to the TC work plan. And so it should be done in the future, in one of our slower months, so we have an opportunity to talk about it. But it's something to consider so that it's right there in the policy, in the code, so everybody knows, okay, you get it when you're appointed, get it when you're elected, and then every year we have an opportunity to just do a brief refresher and say, remember, we have this. This is what you need to do. Take a look at it. If you have any questions or, Karen, ideas for things that you might want to be changed or added in, it's an opportunity for input as well, is it not, Karen?
Yes, I think that's a really good point. Yep.
So as we go throughout the year, Harold, as we observe things or, see things that we think might be helpful to be added into this policy going forward, then we can forward that and it can be collected and maybe addressed the next time it comes up for an update. So other people, there's a lot in here, and a lot of the things that we've talked about at TC from time to time about trying to be, we want to be inclusive. We want to invite everybody to come and share ideas with us. So, we try and do everything that's here. But if you don't have any thoughts you want to share today, please feel free to email them because, for me, that's a little bit easier to put it down on email and just send it off and have an opportunity to carefully think about what I say. So anybody else have any other comments? And Harold, we can think about how to make it meaningful for people as well. Yep. Anybody else have any other comments for Karen or questions? Okay, we do need a motion since this is headed back to the council and they're looking for our feedback. Are you willing to make a motion? Lynn?
I would like to make a motion to accept, and you finish that statement.
So recommend approval to the Common Council?
Yes, recommend approval to the Common Council. Thank you very much.
Okay, Robbie?
Second.
Okay, did you wish to speak to your motion, Lynn?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right. Is there discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, abstain, or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you very much, Karen. And again, if anybody has any other thoughts that they wish to share, please feel free to send them to Karen, and she'll add them into the other feedback that she's received already. Okay, thanks so much. All right, so we will go back to items 3 and 4. So items 3 and 4 will be discussed together, and then following the presentations and discussion, they're not looking for any formal action from us this evening. It's just more of an opportunity for an update from the planning staff. And before we get started, Aiden, it doesn't look like we have anybody registered to speak. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. So if, however you want to handle questions in terms of the planning staff, go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks. Just let me get my screen shared and we can be off and rolling. All right. Good evening. My name is Jeff Greger. I'm a planner in the planning division. I am co-leading the Southeast Area Plan with Rebecca Kinnair. I'm joined tonight by my co-presenter, Ben Zellers. He's co-leading the Southwest Area Plan with Urvashi Martin. So we wanted to update the commission and primarily focus tonight on the planning process and the community feedback that we've heard to date for both Southeast and Southwest area plans. We did provide a memo in Legistar along with the presentation. That memo has a number of links in it. One of those links goes to the feedback summary, which has every comment that we've received so far. So if you're interested in more detailed comments, you can refer to that. Tonight's review of those comments will be more along the lines of the themes of those comments versus very specific comments. So we also want to just refresh everybody's memory on what an area plan is, go over the plan schedule, and then after reviewing the feedback themes, talk about our next steps. So just to refresh everybody on what an area plan is, it's a long-term vision designed to guide changes in many aspects of the community. The recommendations cover the 7 comprehensive plan elements, so land use, transportation, neighborhoods and housing, economy, opportunity, culture, character, green and resilient, effective government, and health and safety. So the city's been split up into 12 area plans that will be developed and updated every 10 years. We wrapped up the first 2 plans, the West and the Northeast, earlier this year. We're moving on to the Southeast and Southwest. And we hope to have the rest of the city done within that 10-year period. Moving on. So for the Southeast area, this is the planning area. We're bounded by State Highway 30 on the north, Sigel Road on the south, and Village of McFarland. On the east, bordered by the interstate. And on the west, we're bordered by the city of Monona and Lake Monona. And Highway 51, for reference, kind of cuts through the western third of the study area. There are just over 11,000 housing units and a population of just over 25,000 in this area. And just under 26% of the population is BIPOC and Hispanic and Latinx. For the Southwest area, it's bounded by the Beltline on the north, City of Fitchburg on the east, on the south, Verona Road, Highway 18151, and Cross Country Road. And on the west, the boundary is the Ice Age Trail, Junction area, and High Point Road. In 2020, there were over 16,000 housing units, almost 37,000 in population, and almost 37% of the population is BIPOC, Hispanic, or Latinx. As many of you are aware, the city of Madison keeps on growing. In 2020, the population was about 270,000 people. We expect between 2020 and 2050 to add about another 115,000 new residents. Population growth comes from two sources, new residents being born here and people moving here. So we need to find a way to make additional places for people to live. And we don't expect this population growth to slow down anytime soon. So that's a big component of these two plans that we're working on, is to try to figure out how we're going to handle the influx of residents as well as 50,000 new jobs in that same time period. I mentioned the plan topics. These are the same ones that are in the comp plan. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but again, land use and transportation, just what it sounds like. We'll be looking at future land use map, building heights, as well as transportation, access to transit, ped bike facilities, that so forth. Neighborhoods and housing affordability, complete neighborhoods, economy opportunity. We'll be working with our economic development staff to look at how we can strengthen businesses in both study areas. One new thing that we did for these two plans was we conducted a business walk earlier this month, where we visited over 400 businesses combined between the Southeast and the Southwest planning areas. We have culture and character, green and resilient, effective government, health and safety. And then the final one I want to talk a little bit about is the community action strategy. That's not a chapter in the comp plan. It's not a element. Formerly known as the CDBG funding. So we do additional capacity building and community and stakeholder relationship work with specific areas within each of the planning areas, as well as identify potential small-scale physical improvements that can be done. We used to, and we're still hoping we will get federal funding to help pay for those physical improvements. But as everybody knows, things in Washington are a little bit unsettled at the moment, so we're still waiting to hear on that. Our schedule, we're wrapping up phase one, which we identified issues and opportunities, held quite a few meetings with the public. We had some focus group meetings, some pop-up outreaches. We also did a community survey, which is another new process. It was a scientific survey, random selection of folks to receive that. And we're moving into phase two now, where we will start drafting action items, recommendations for the plan. We'll be taking those out to the community August, September timeframe for initial feedback. And we'll also check in with city boards, committees, and commissions around that topic. Phase three, this fall into next spring, we'll revise our recommendations and draft kind of the full plan. Again, we'll have some public engagement with that. And then we anticipate starting the adoption process in Q2 of 2026, and hopefully wrapping it up within that same quarter, getting the plan adopted, and then we will start implementation. Moving on to kind of the public engagement we've done so far. So we kicked off both of these processes for the Southeast and Southwest with in-person open houses and virtual meetings. Those were done in late November and early December of 2024. Following those meetings, both plans put up interactive commenting mapping, where members from both planning areas, members of the community from both planning areas could identify areas that are issues in their community, regarding all things land use, transportation, biking, stormwater, other things like that. Both teams have coordinated with the UW People Program. The University of Wisconsin-Madison works with high school students, and this year they were working at Memorial and La Follette, both in the Memorial slightly outside of the Southwest area planning area, but both teams work with high school students to get some youth perspective. Southwest also hired some community partners to help with engagement with underrepresented groups. Both teams conducted some neighborhood walks. Southeast, we walked around Hystad Park and the surrounding neighborhoods. And then some of the other engagement we've done, we've been working with the neighborhood resource teams, neighborhood associations, individual schools, the larger school district administration, nonprofits, municipalities that are adjacent to the study areas, as well as other folks. Just want to highlight again some of the new engagement activities that we've done. I mentioned the survey. We sent it out in two parts. The first part, we got over 900 responses back. We just closed the second part of the survey, so we haven't gotten that data back yet. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have all of the data surrounding the survey back, and we'll post that on our webpage. We did the Madison Madness brackets. We got over 1,400 responses for that exercise, where we asked community members to kind of rank. We gave them choices between, say, commuting to work in a car versus commuting to work on the bus, which is more important to you. And out of all of that, affordable housing rose to the top of the list of things most important to folks living in both of these study areas as well. It was open to the entire city as well. But in all cases, affordable housing was the top important item. Both teams also partnered with the NINA Collective to host focus group meetings aimed at reaching the BIPOC groups. And then we did some pop-up outreach at the libraries, other community events, food pantries, and we had a really successful outreach with at the Bike to Work Week event earlier this month. Essentially, we went to where people were already going to be versus asking them to come to a meeting where we were going to be. And we found pretty good success with that model this go around. I mentioned the focus groups. These are some quotes from those specific focus groups. I'll just highlight a few of them. The first one, there are no jobs here, 0. Transportation has a lot to do with it. How do you get there if you don't have a car? The highway corridors in particular are a real barrier to getting to other parts of the city unless you can drive. That one's in the southeast area. I think that revolves around a lot of Highway 51 as well as the interstate. And then the last one I'll just highlight is, so they have this whole bus system now and they have no bus shelters. So we need shelters and we need more convenient bus stops. And again, if you go into the memo, there's links to the report that NINA Collective did, and there's additional information in there. Now I just want to kind of focus in on the feedback for Southeast, and then Ben's going to talk about Southwest and finish out the presentation. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to just mainly focus on the transportation ones. But I did want to mention that the text that's in a color, not black, represents feedback that we received from underrepresented groups. So we've got it broken down here by the 7 elements in the comp plan. but I'm going to focus in on just the transportation ones. And again, these are, I'm going to talk more in themes in that fuller feedback summary that's posted on the web. We have very specific areas for some of these themes. So obviously Highway 51 is a big barrier in the southeast area. Folks find it hard to cross the street, pedestrians, bicyclists. Motorists also find it unsafe, especially at the intersections. We heard a lot about speeding in neighborhoods. Oh, I want to mention one other thing about Highway 51, sorry. For those interested, and the DOT will be holding a meeting on July 15th at La Follette High School to talk about their intersection options. So if that's something that interests you, July 15th at La Follette, I believe it's either 5 or 6 o'clock start time for that meeting. So back to the traffic calming in the neighborhoods. We heard a lot of comments about the need to reduce speed. We've heard, there's speeding on North Thompson Drive, Swanton Road, Meadowlark Drive, just to name a few. So we'll be working with our transportation colleagues to figure out what's actually going on there and what some potential solutions to those issues are. We also have a rather large area, a rather large neighborhood area in the southeast area that are missing sidewalks. So that will be a very big effort for us to not only figure out how and where those go in, but educating the community on why we need to have sidewalks. We heard a lot about bus shelters and benches, the need for them at bus stops. We also heard a little bit about an area north of Milwaukee Street in the High Stand neighborhood with the Metro network redo that folks felt like there was less bus service for that particular neighborhood. And is there anything that the city can do to improve that? And then we also heard about, making connections in the bike pedestrian system that are currently missing. One big one that we heard about was for the folks who live south of 12 and 18 in the Owl Creek neighborhood, how those kids could get to La Follette High School safely. And currently there's no good pass system to be able to do that. So just highlighting on these maps, we've highlighted in this red the highways as barriers. Highway 51 cuts right through, cuts neighborhoods pretty much in half. The trouble intersections or challenging intersections are in the yellow circles. We also heard a lot about Milwaukee Street and Cottage Grove Road overpass of the interstate that folks feel like they're taking their lives in their hands when they try to cross that walking or biking. So we have quite a few transportation things to look at in the plan. This middle map, I've circled the large neighborhood areas that don't have sidewalk. Those are currently in red. And again, that'll be a priority for us to educate the community on the city's new sidewalk, or the fact that we don't assess for sidewalks anymore, and the need for sidewalks, and what can be done to preserve trees. That's a big issue that we heard. If you put in sidewalks, you're going to cut down my trees, that sort of thing. So we'll be looking at that area in particular.
Jeff,
yes.
Jeff, excuse me, Robbie has a question for you.
Sure.
Yeah, I noticed that you have Milwaukee Street and Cottage Grove Road over the interstate marked as low stress crossings. And yet you said people feel they are taking their life in their hands. So I'm wondering if there's an inconsistency in the map.
I believe these low stress crossings come from perhaps the bicycle plan. I'd have to follow up with the colleague who put these on there. We definitely did hear comments from folks about those two overpasses. But yeah, we'll follow up and figure out that potential inconsistency.
And what are the other two that are crossing the interstate?
Buckeye and Femrite.
Okay. How do people feel about those?
We did not hear any concerns about crossings there, whether or not they weren't at the meeting or they didn't make a comment on our commenting map, but thus far we haven't heard concerns about those crossings.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of note that because those, that's an important note for people who are trying to get across those barriers. Yeah. And I see that the 51 crossings are noted as being problematic, and I am sort of, assuming that if people are afraid that it's not really a low stress crossing on the interstate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll follow up with that. And then just lastly, I've put the current shared use path and bicycle network map in here showing existing facilities and planned facilities, and we'll be using this as our guide to look at where we can close some of those missing connections, make recommendations around those items. I'm going to pass it off to Ben Zellers now to finish out talking about the Southwest area as well as kind of next steps.
Thanks, Jeff. I will have a slide and a slide or two to focus really on the transportation aspects of land use and transportation. So we heard some of the same things, certainly in the Southwest area plan process as has been discussed for Southeast. Some things in other chapters like economy and opportunity kind of relate a little bit to transportation aspects, like, for example, trying to revitalize business areas along Verona Road and at the Meadowwood Shopping Center. Verona Road in particular, we heard a lot of comments about how that is even more of a barrier now than it was before WSDOT reconstruction, and how it kind of presents a challenge for some businesses in the area. Not sure how much we'll be able to do about that with, as a city, given it's a state facility and a lot of money was invested in it fairly recently, but just want to note that as a comment. Next slide. Then obviously the other chapters, as Jeff had noted, culture and character, green and resilient, effective government. Sometimes health and safety relates to transportation in some ways, such as lack of street lighting, that can roll over into the transportation section or kind of connect with that. But next slide. So really focusing on the transportation related feedback. We heard a lot of speeding concerns in the Southwest area as well, and this is by no means an exclusive list, but just want to highlight in particular Raymond Road, Schrader Road, and South Gammon Road. And then near schools as well, speeding was noted. We have several crossings noted as dangerous in areas where people felt that bike lanes were inadequate to serve people safely. Missing sidewalks, also something that came up in the Southwest area as it did in Southeast, as was the need for more bus shelters and benches, especially in and around the Allied area. Then really a strong push for more shared use path and bike route connectivity in the Southwest area. Note that some traffic calming is needed in some specific areas, and then some discussion of traffic congestion along South Gammon, Woodington Way by Anana Elementary School, which is a local street, kind of one of the few instances where we have a school served, really the front door and pick up and drop off area served by a local street. The Whitney, Schrader, and Beltline kind of interchange / intersection, then Verona Road at the Beltline as well. Next slide. Then sorry, Jeff, I'll cue you to click through these, but we want to highlight some things here as well. So if we can do the first click. Schrader Road in particular, really the entire length was noted as being challenging by people, and desires to especially improve the ease and safety of crossing north to south, especially concern for kids heading down to Anana. And then another click. That is Anana School, as I had mentioned, and really has only primarily actually local street access. Although there is kind of a backdoor / stairway up from Hammersley Road, really the main access is along Woodington, and it becomes congested during pickup and drop off time. Then noting the two areas, and next click here as well for lack of sidewalks within the Southwest planning area, and we heard many people expressing desire to really start to fill those gaps. Next click. We had some, actually more than some, several comments noting desire to improve access to Elver Park. Sorry, Robbie, did you have a question?
I don't think the slides are advancing. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, they're not advancing. It's just the circles that are hopefully popping up for your screen as well.
I'm so sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, just wanted to note Elver Park. We had some comments from folks, and this would primarily be, I think, a Parks Division issue, but really ties in, relates to transportation as well. Wanting some more connections for pedestrian and bicyclists, possibly for people to park as well from the south and west sides of Elver Park. So I think that's kind of a potential future partnership, especially as Elver Park gets expanded to the southwest down the line. Next click. And then Hammersley Road. We heard a lot of compliments on the current extension of the shared use path from the Southwest Path overpass to the west, and a lot of desire to continue that connection all the way through to Elver Park. And next slide. Or sorry, wait, there's one more kind of to the south there, Cross Country Road, Maple Grove, Nesbit. A lot of comments expressing an interest in changing kind of the configuration of this intersection. Right now it's a four-way stop. A lot of people saying that it would work better as a roundabout or signalized intersection. So, and then as far as what's next, and this is for both, this I think is our last slide, so we can turn it over for questions.
Yeah, there's a question from Alder Okovich.
This is the last slide. I'll let Ben finish, and then I'll ask.
Okay, sure. So yeah, as far as what's next, this is both for the southeast and southwest. We're going to be drafting initial plan recommendations, including a land use vision map and recommendations related to maps. We'll have some either 2D or 3D illustrations to convey some recommendations in some specific focus areas. We'll have some additional public engagement as far as arts, some public meetings and activities and focus groups related to community action strategy areas, some community partner outreach for Southwest. Then we'll have an online commenting tool for people to comment on draft recommendations and maps. And then some city check-ins or some check-ins with city boards, committees, and commissions right now expected for perhaps October. Potentially could be slightly later than that, depending on things, how things shake out between now and then. And I think that was the last slide. Yes. So we will turn it over to the committee for questions and discussion.
Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ben, for the presentation. I wanted to ask a question. Did you not get any comments on Whitney Way as a possibly dangerous road?
No, that's yeah, by no means was this an exclusive list. It's just kind of highlighting some of the areas we received a lot of comments on. We did certainly hear about Whitney Way being an issue. And one of the things was that right now it kind of is 4 lanes by Vitence, and as you approach the Beltline, and then as you head south, it kind of tapers off to a somewhat unmarked street where people either, depending on how you view it, it's a bike lane or a parking lane or a travel lane. So yes, Whitney Way, we did get some comments on that.
Okay. I used to live in the area, Whitney Way. and didn't know it was 4 lanes, whether it was 4 lanes or 2 lanes for years. So
Yes, and I think that issue kind of still remains for a portion of it, for sure.
yeah.
Is that all you had then, Alder?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Thank you, both of you, for the presentation. It's really helpful. I have a process question. So I appreciate the diverse outreach efforts. I think that is really important. So thank you for that. Specifically, I'm curious to know what kind of outreach efforts are directed towards people with disabilities when you're doing a planning process. And I know Rebecca is here tonight too, so perhaps you can comment on it too. So I think about, for some folks, getting to a community event or a community meeting is quite impossible for a variety of reasons, or having access to the technology to reply online. So anyway, if you could comment on that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's where we relied, for at least for the Southeast area, that's where we relied on the NINA Collective, their help reaching out to their partners to reach out to different communities, such as those folks with disabilities, as well as other underrepresented communities to get their input. And NINA offered both virtual and in person, but I'm not sure as far for the Southeast. I know we've had a difficult time engaging with folks. Period. We've had a far lower turnout than, say, the Southwest area. So again, that's where we're trying to continue to reach out and reach those groups that we typically don't. But yeah, I'll say that for Southeast, it's been a little bit harder.
Hello, this is Rebecca Kinnear, also on the planning team. I'm just going to sneak in and help my colleague Jeff to let you know that also NINA Collective did do one of their focus groups with the Access for Independence group that was on Milwaukee Street there. So that was one of the focus groups that they had. So I just wanted to add that in.
Rebecca, that's super helpful, because I was questioning the NINA Collective's relationship with the disability community. So I'm glad to hear Access was tapped. So thank you. That helps a lot.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Okay. Is that all you had then, Denise?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Sure. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you. Question for Jeff. Ben mentioned how on state routes we're somewhat limited in what we can do to address comments that come up. I just wondered if you had anything to add, specifically since you were talking about Stoughton Road, and that's a project in process right now. If there is any opportunity for this planning effort to influence anything.
Yeah.
I know it's pretty far along, so.
Yeah, so planning staff has been working with the DOT actually prior to the Southeast Area Plan starting up. So we've been working with the DOT and providing comment on their Highway 51 corridor plan. And we continue to coordinate with them and give them city comments. And they've been fairly receptive to, well, as far as the DOT can be receptive, they've been pretty good to work with so far. We'll see in the end how it comes out, but we have been working with them for quite a while on options. Rebecca, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add. You've been kind of spearheading that for the team.
Yeah, hello again, Rebecca Kinnear. We've been meeting with them, yes, as Jeff said, early and often on this project, and are pleased that of the 5 different alternative, like mainline alternatives that they're looking for, 3 of them are really talking about reducing speeds and making it more of an urban thoroughfare, urban highway instead of a the kind of the rural cross section that it has today. So I think that they have a design team that is cognizant of that. However, in all of their scenarios, they're looking at adding a lane going each direction. So that's, one of those trade-offs, I guess. I think the key is going to be in the details, and they're looking at some of those intersection opportunities, I think, before they could really start to make a decision on which of the 5 alternatives that they're really looking at. And to be clear, staff is most interested, City of Madison is most interested in alternative 4 and 5, which really slows things down. I think when we talk about our goal for this highway is, could it be a better East Washington Avenue? It carries about the same amount of traffic as East Washington Avenue. Could it be a better version of East Washington, really, as long as we're designing it? But I think the intersection improvements or their options are going to help determine how those mainline designs could work. So that's why that meeting on July 15th is going to be key for the public. And earlier in July, I think it might just be even next week, they're going to have their elected officials meeting so that different elected officials, it's called the TAC and LOAC for those that love the DOT acronyms. The local officials are going to get to hear kind of where they're at with this process before that public meeting. So I think we've been working well with them and trying to give them input along the way, if that helps.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think, and that you're thinking about it in terms of East Wash is interesting, because I was traveling recently on there and thought it was a shame we didn't have like a sort of comprehensive plan for what it could look like with or without frontage roads and all that. So anyway, glad that you're in those conversations.
Oh, yes. With and without frontage roads is absolutely part of the conversation about how we want to think about that. So yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Haro, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Do you mind going to one of the slides that had like the bike ped network? Doesn't matter which one. Yeah, that's perfect. I think I made that suggestion in one of the previous planning processes, and I think these maps do look different than the one from prior times. One suggestion I do have, so for the shared use and bicycle network, you have the distinction of like shared use path, two-way bike facilities, and then existing on-street route and protected bike facility. And I wonder if there might be a better way using the concept. Like, I know that the city is also working on the all ages, all abilities bike network and differentiating facilities by whether there's any kind of bike facility and whether there's an all ages, all abilities bike facilities. Because, you mentioned, for example, Owl Creek neighborhood is not well connected with the bike network. Well, if you look at this map, there's an existing on-street route protected bike facility. They just have to go over to Marsh Road, and they can take Agricultural Drive, and that gets them to the school. But those are like, painted narrow bike lanes that probably are not amenable to people of all ages and abilities. And I understand you don't want to make maps too complicated, but I think conflating like a painted bike lane with an actual low stress, all ages, all abilities facility might be somewhat detrimental for people who maybe, the people who live there know whether the bike facility is good or not, but not everybody might know that.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. We can definitely look into creating a map like that.
Okay, awesome. I wanted to echo what Robbie had mentioned about the low stress crossings. I know that the Milwaukee Street crossing of the interstate, that has been in front of Transportation Commission. There were some things that were being added. And so, yeah, I think so is the map supposed to denote current low stress crossings or desired low stress crossings?
I'm not 100% sure. I did not put this map together, so I have to confirm that.
I do believe, Jeff, that this was our existing facilities and how they were classified with the information that we had in our GIS layers. So this is not yet a desired map. Like those recommendations haven't come yet. So this is like the base maps of like what's there with some analysis. So I believe if we have that as low stress, that means we got that from somewhere. So that's why we really do need to check those inconsistencies, as Robbie said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Just look into that because clearly Milwaukee Street, not low stress whatsoever. And then final question, how do you deal, so the topic of like bus stops, having better facilities, having benches as bus stops, and I think that's a very valid concern. It also strikes me as something that maybe should be addressed at a citywide level, either in addition or instead of the plan where and I think Metro has some outdated plans of like, okay, yeah, here are some spots where really we should upgrade facilities. They've been focusing on getting concrete pads, which is like the lowest improvement whatsoever. But yeah, can you say a little bit about how you handle that type of input? Is that something that's only going into the plan? Is that something that you're sharing with Metro and then they put it into something bigger?
Yeah, we're going to have to follow up with Metro on that and find out, if what are the possibilities within their agency, and figure out the best home for that. Like you said, potentially it should be a citywide recommendation versus individually in a few area plans. So that's one thing we need to follow up with Metro on and kind of work out the best home for that sort of recommendation if it has a home.
And we might be able to check also with the community development staff, see if we can use the CDBG funding for improvements like that in some of these targeted areas. So there might be kind of a specific geographic component sometimes, which would lead us to maybe include some recommendations in these specific plans. So yeah, I think there can be that citywide view, but potentially also the local view as part of these area plans.
Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, as you mentioned, like there's different funding sources for bus stop improvements. There's like, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to throw in an update on that meeting for 51. It's on July 15th from 5:30 to 7:30 at La Follette. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. That's all.
We'll see if we can maybe find an email notification of that and get it out to everybody. Because typically I usually get notified of meetings like that and ask Aiden to send it out to everybody, but I don't recall seeing that one. So we'll see if maybe we can find that, or if somebody has it, send it to Aiden and me and we'll get it out to everybody.
Anne, I do have a notification that we got from DOT that I will send to you and Aiden tomorrow.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. And thanks, Alder, for that information. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. This is to Ben for the Southwest. Was there any discussion, or did you look at any of the WSDOT has started a planning process for the South Beltline regarding overpasses from, I know one in the Southwest from Schrader Road over to Odana. And I just have a feeling that planning process has stopped or is on a slow boat.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll need to kind of check in. Yes, but I think we'll need to kind of check in with them. We haven't heard anything in a while and see where the current process is at. Right now, I think what's, unless we hear otherwise from WSDOT, I had also worked on the west area plan to the north, and so we had kind of corresponded and coordinated with them on overpasses, underpasses there, and so we included 2 recommendations within that mapping, and so my expectation is that we would probably carry those forward into this southwest area since, it's kind of half and half. And so, I
encourage that to try to maybe put some get it for sure onto our plan because that's a priority to leave traffic away from Gammon and Whitney overpass interchanges to get traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
south.
The West Area Plan connections were the one kind of just west of Schrader Whitney was Kessel Court, kind of heading under there.
I know they've changed it several times, and it's looked.
Yeah, that's I think the latest we have, and then Struck Street is something that we're showing as well.
Okay. Well, as long as it was not brought up by anybody in the initial no discussion at any of your meetings, outreach.
I mean, I think
overpasses.
I think there's definite desire and acknowledgement that the existing interchanges are dangerous for bicyclists and pedestrians, and so I think it's up to us as staff to come up with proposals, actions, recommendations to help solve those problems. So that would be those alternate routes.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Alder O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is more of a question for Jeff, but kind of curious on how this planning process works with the town of Blooming Grove, which is annexing in 2027. We have a large population down in, or large-ish, down in April Hills, and just kind of curious as to like what that's going to contain, and kind of like is this process incorporating them annexing in fully?
Yes. So this plan will make recommendations for those town islands. We'll call them town islands, those town areas that will be attached in October 31st of 2027. We're looking at areas that currently aren't in the central urban service area. And likely one of our recommendations will be to add those areas post attachment. So that in the future, the city has the ability to extend water and sewer at whatever time, street reconstruction or whatever that could occur. Also looking at how they, there's a few streets that don't connect to City of Madison streets currently. Looking at making a recommendation to connect those, as well as connecting the bike ped network, that sort of thing. We're looking comprehensively at those town areas and what recommendations would be appropriate in this plan in preparation for that attachment.
Okay, perfect. And then kind of like one other question is Seglico Road getting, like, I don't know what's like fully going on with that. I know there's been a lot of concerns and discussions about that. You're gonna have to pardon me. I don't actually know who manages that road, if that's the city or if that's the county or the state. But I just know that that's a big area of concern, especially with semi trucks and access to the landfill and stuff like that. I'm curious to know I was looking through the documents. I didn't see any mentions of that road, but I could be wrong.
So it's a joint effort between the Village of McFarland and the City of Madison. The city does not have as much frontage as the village does. And currently they are working on kind of some planning for reconstruction of Seglico Road to the east of Secret Places, going to the east to County Highway AB. But they're kind of in the early stages of that planning. However, there would be some potential city property. Well, they're town properties now, but by the time construction happens, they'll likely be in the city. So the city would probably have some participation in that road reconstruction. But like I said, right now it's in the early stages. And that was in response to last summer, they were looking at putting a TID in place for a development south of Seglico Road, which would have add some additional semi-traffic. They're looking at how to make improvements kind of in that one section. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Alder. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. One more question, since the topic came up of like connecting roads, and I know that was like a big topic in the Southwest area plan and some other area plans possibly, where there was also like people have different opinions. Did you get any feedback, or is there any plans of like, connecting current dead-end roads to complete the grid to allow through traffic where currently there is no through traffic, or did that come up as a topic anywhere? Or is that just not as big a thing in this area, in these two areas?
Other than those street ends in April Hill and Secret Places, I don't know that we've necessarily heard a lot about doing that in other areas of the Southeast area plan, but it's something that staff is looking at. We recognize that east of 51, there really aren't any good north-south thoroughfares that go completely from one arterial to another. So there are a couple of instances where there could be a potential of making a street connection that isn't there currently to improve north-south traffic flow, but it would mean potentially removing a few homes here and there. So it's something we have to explore a little bit more. But other than that, other than those two instances, it's not really something that's been brought up by the community anyway.
I think for
Yeah, I would.
oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention for Southwest, I think really the biggest kind of street connectivity consideration has really been in the works and has been part of a past adopted plans, which is the kind of realignment of Raymond Road and the connection of High Point Road. And so I think really for High Point in particular, there's some trepidation maybe in the community that's been expressed about how will that impact the use of High Point Road to the north of Midtown. How much is traffic going to increase, both for the road connection and then the development of the Viridian neighborhood that's going in south of Midtown Road. So that's something that we've certainly heard about as far as street connections.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, and I would encourage you, if you do develop some plans of like, oh yeah, we are considering tearing down some houses to complete this connection. I mean, bringing this to the public, bringing it to the commissions and boards to get some input on that. I think that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Harold. I don't see any other hands. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, a lot of great feedback. Jeff, Ben, anything else you need from us this evening?
I don't think so.
Nope, good to hear the discussion and comments.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you back in the fall, it sounds like.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, next we have item 5, Metro Transit bus stop changes. Mick, is that you tonight?
Yeah, it's an
All
easy
right.
one.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, let me share my screen quick. All right, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this one, I apologize, we didn't include this in our packet last time, so we're bringing this back today. We just have this one bus stop in Sun Prairie that's on Market Street that there's a lot of events on Market Street. There's a farmer's market. There's just a bunch of things that close this on a routine basis during the summer. So we checked in with Sun Prairie and asked if we could not run to Market Street. We have this, we did a little reroute around Linnerud, Bristol, and then come up on Main Street. And we have a stop in the area that's just on Main Street there. And we just want to move that stop, and it will have an extra benefit of down here. There is a senior housing complex, so we'll run that bus by there. So it'll give a little extra access to that community. So we just wanted to move that stop because we were closing it every week, and we would have to send supervisors out there to put signs up and all that kind of thing. So we just wanted to make it a little bit easier for everybody. So I'm sorry we didn't include that last time around, but if we would like to ask you to approve this bus stop change like the ones you approved last week or last meeting. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Mick. Comments or questions for Mick? Okay, I'm seeing none. Bill?
I'll make a motion for approval of the bus stop change and changes in downtown Sunburn.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Denise?
I can second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Bill?
It makes perfect sense.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion to approve the recommended bus stop changes. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. So please raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing no hands, so the motion is carried unanimously. Thanks, Mick.
Thank you.
All right, and next we have an update on the Metro Transit driver assault incidents. Brian and Mick?
Yeah, I will wait for Brian to get on.
I'm here.
There he is. All right, he's there. This is Brian's thing. So you've all met Brian Mulrooney, our Chief of Operations, and I will let him take it from here.
Okay, welcome, Brian, Chief of Operations.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. Just wanted to give a quick update based on what we had discussed. It was about 2 months ago regarding what efforts we were going to start doing following the kind of rash of recent operator assaults. So what we did was we formed 2 working groups, one internal group and one interagency group to discuss the assaults, recommend mitigations, and kind of make sure that all of our agencies are working together properly and efficiently to prevent these and mitigate these in the future. So the internal group, I'll go ahead and share my screen to kind of demonstrate what it is that we've been kind of working on. So the internal group still is composed of 3 Metro employees and 3 Teamsters 120 representatives, so that we have an even split of representation. And we went through every single assault, every physical assault that's happened at Metro in 2025 thus far. There were a total of 6 of them. And in this meeting, we essentially went through and filled out this form down here, where we made sure all of the documentation that is required following an assault is there, that we document any sort of exceptions to procedure by the operator in an instance, any exceptions to procedures by supervisors, if there was an operator barrier in use, and if there were any post-incident procedure exceptions that occurred. So the reason we kind of went through it this way was to kind of essentially hold each other accountable, where the Teamsters representatives were able to point out issues in any sort of Metro's policies or procedures, and that the Teamsters were able to kind of see where anything was going wrong with some of the members who were involved in these assaults. So it was a really great exercise. We spent a solid 3 hours reviewing video of assaults and going through this evaluation sheet. We'd also went through what's called a risk mitigation register, where we essentially labeled a level of severity and likelihood to an assault. So then we measured it before we watched the video and how likely it is to occur and how severe that instance was. And then after we watched it discuss recommended mitigations, then we evaluated it once again. And the good news is, in every single assault that we reviewed, the risk mitigation decreased. So the level of risk and likelihood decreased. So there are mitigations available, and the mitigations that were proposed during our first meeting are things that we at Metro are looking into right now. So this is kind of a summary of the assaults that we looked at in our most recent meeting with that internal group. The left column here describes how the group measured the incident or the assault before we watched the video and before we recommended mitigations. The mitigations are in this middle column here. And then following those mitigations, this is where, on the right column, is where that level of risk landed after those mitigations were put in place. So you'll notice that the most common mitigation that was recommended by the internal group was to install operator barriers. And the installation of an operator barrier would not necessarily prevent any of these assaults. The risk is always there. But what it does is it reduces the severity of what that assault may have or may turn into or may have turned into. An update on the operator barriers themselves. We have built into the 2026 capital budget a provision in our bus replacement budget to include bus replacement and improvement budget. So operator barriers would be included in that improvement section of the budget. We're currently in the early stages of developing an RFP to go out and look and see what kind of options we have available to us for retrofits and what kind of costs would be associated with that. So the recommended mitigations from that internal working group from Metro employees and Teamster representatives are moving forward, which is great news. I think has been really well received by union representatives. We're also still committed to building all of our new buses with operator barriers installed already, like we have with our 60-foot fleet. This is just going to be kind of retroactive to the older fleet that we currently have. One of the other mitigations that was recommended from this group was to require de-escalation training for all operators. That is another recommended mitigation that is already getting movement. We had a trainer come up to train all of our admin and training staff on de-escalation training so that that staff is going to be able to take that knowledge and spread that to our frontline operator staff when we have our refresher training here coming up in, I believe, next week. So all of the recommended mitigations that we came up with during that internal working group meeting either have been implemented or are being implemented. So we're moving forward with that. And then after that internal group met, we had an interagency group where Metro representatives, Teamsters 120 representative, a police representative, and a mayor's office representative met and conferred to discuss the results from that internal meeting, make sure that we're doing everything correct. Cooperatively, that meeting went very well. Some of the recommendations from that meeting were for Metro to, we're going to tweak some of our reporting processes to make it a little more clear for police so we can get information quicker following an assault. But other than that, that's kind of the movement that we've had since the last time we discussed this, and the reception has been so far very positive with what we've been doing. That's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, it looks like we have some questions from folks. Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you for bringing that information to us. That was very helpful. Really quick, the train the trainer and then training everyone else. I just, a side note, wanted to ask if there's an ongoing, it's not just, I hope it's not just like a check stamp, like it's got to keep going and not just be one incident. So you have plans for long term.
Yeah, so to answer that, the FTA actually requires 1 hour of de-escalation training per year. This year in particular, we're going to far and exceed that. But this will be an ongoing thing year over year where we actually track some of the real incidents that occur and build off that.
Hey, that's all you had, Lynn? Okay. Alder O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this to us. I guess, what percentage of buses currently have, or which buses currently have barriers in between them? Is it just the new 60-foot ones, or have any of the older buses been retrofitted?
Yeah, so it's currently just the 60-foot fleet. So 62 of the battery electric buses we have. So that'd be close to about a third of our fleet have operator barriers in place. None of our older buses have them right now. The process to do that, it's not necessarily, in a crazy long process. We just have to go through the purchasing process and get that moving. There's two models of buses that we would have to get specific barriers for. They're pretty hefty barriers, and it's not just a quick install. It's a very involved thing. So about a third right now, and then the plan is moving forward to retroactively do the rest of them.
Yeah. And then second question, we have recently, increased the penalties or the fines, I guess, for attacking or assaulting and harassing bus drivers. And I know there was a conversation about posting those and things like that. Has that occurred, or has that been posted in the buses and I just haven't noticed it, or
Yes, I believe the installation of the notice that says assaulting an operator is an XYZ fine. Mick, I think you have more information on this than I do.
Yeah. I am sitting right next to the stickers. We just got them back from the printer, so we have to get them installed. So they're here.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, thanks, Alder. Lynn, go ahead. Oh, nope. Okay. Alder O'Brien, your hand is still up. Did you? Okay. All right. I'm seeing no hands at the moment. A lot of great information, and I assume, Brian, this is going to be ongoing. Internal group and interagency group?
Yeah, great question. So we're, as assaults, do occur in the future, we'll continue doing this, but we are going to start going back to some older assaults from 2024 and 2023 and evaluate those so that we kind of, the internal group is able to kind of practice and get more information on what's causing these, what we can do to mitigate, those that happened in the past. And then once we get a good grasp on it, we're also going to start evaluating non-physical assaults. So verbal assaults, any kind of threatening behaviors or anything like that, to see if there is anything that we can do to mitigate some of those lower level occurrences that we see as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been very successful so far in terms of your method. So keeping that ongoing is sounds like a real productive thing to do. Any other comments from staff or commission members or other alders? No, thanks so much. And whatever you feel is appropriate, it'd be great to come back and update TC because clearly this is something that is of high concern to everybody. And so this gives people an opportunity to hear what's going on and see how clearly you've been addressing the issues.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, Rebecca Hoyt. We have two Rebeccas tonight. Update on the city's ongoing compliance with PROAG and the ADA transition plan revitalization. So welcome, Rebecca, who's our ADA coordinator, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Hoyt. My pronouns are she, hers. I am a fair-skinned, femme-presenting person with green eyes and brown and silver curly hair that is fighting the humidity in a bun on the top of my head. I wear glasses with tinted lenses, and I have a cream-colored sweater and denim jacket, and I'm sitting in my home office with lots of plants and artwork behind me. I wanted to apologize for the late distribution of an updated PowerPoint, but I am excited, and I think you're going to be happy with the updates. So this is our update on the ADA transition plan. I want to give a little bit of background, but the big news is it is posted. It is online. There is a link in a slide deck tonight for folks to take a look at it. My plan is just to share some high-level highlights this evening, and then we will be doing some more in-depth public information sessions later on. So just a little bit of background and refresher. Madison did enact an ADA transition plan as required by federal law in the 1990s, and we have maintained compliance. But that compliance has become a little bit decentralized over time. And also our city has grown and changed quite a lot since the 90s, and so have the compliance requirements. And so we recognize, and it's kind of serendipitous, next month is the 35th anniversary of the ADA, that it is time to update our ADA transition plan, not only to ensure legal compliance, but also to really commit to making our city more accessible and usable for all of our residents. And so our transition plan, as I mentioned, is posted online. There's also a summary document. I've included the very long web link on this slide. So folks are welcome to go ahead and take a look. We have it available in 4 languages, and it is open for public comment. The public comment form is also available in 4 languages. And we'll be doing a lot of outreach. I'm already slated to do some outreach on our Hmong radio show, our Spanish radio show, at the Disability Pride Festival. And so we have a lot of ways that we're going to share with the community and engage folks in public comment, and really try to reach folks who may not be aware of the ADA transition plan, or that public comment is a way to engage in this process. And our WeChat channel in Chinese is also another platform we'll be using to engage with folks. Our projected timeline to introduce the plan, incorporating the public comment, is in September of this year. And then it will be referred to the Disability Rights Commission, to the Transportation Commission, and to Public Works. And so what we're going to do, because the plan is a pretty large document, it's very comprehensive with multiple parts, is to kind of break it up into a few digestible pieces, and also give folks an opportunity to kind of pick the topics that are most important to them. So we have tentatively scheduled, and the registrations will come out in a press release later this week. 3 public information sessions. They'll be recorded and posted on our website. The first one is about program services and activities. It'll also cover our self-evaluation of our employment practices, and that'll be on July 9th. Our public right-of-way public information session is on July 16th. I tried to schedule this on a date where there isn't a TC commission, knowing that you all might want to come. And then we also will do facilities and web and digital accessibility on July 23rd. So I will give just kind of some highlights, high level, of our findings through the self-evaluation process. Last time I was here, I talked a little bit about the requirements of the plan, but now we'll kind of dig into some of the findings. So the design standards that we use are PROAG, the Public Right-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines, and these are issued by the United States Access Board. They're a set of basic accessibility standards and practices for pedestrian pathways, including sidewalks, crosswalks, curbs, ramps, street furnishings, pedestrian signals, parking, and other features in the public right-of-way. And these were just recently updated in December of last year. And so with the new updates, any new or altered construction has to comply with the updated PROAG as of January 17th of this year, 2025. So the new standards are not retroactive. They only apply to things that are newly constructed or being altered. That said, we do strive to reach a higher standard. And so I'll talk a little bit more about some of our ongoing programs where we replace things that maybe are not needing replacement in order to improve accessibility and safety. And those are things that are done through various capital improvement projects. So we've had a very large and diverse team working on the public right-of-way portion of the plan. It's included myself as the Disability Rights and Services Program and ADA coordinator. Our lead agency has been Department of Civil Rights. We also contracted with Access to Independence, our local independent living center. We worked with the Office of the City Attorney, Department of Transportation, including Madison Metro and Traffic Engineering, Streets Division, and the Greater Madison NPO. And as a group, we inventoried facilities, created a list of physical barriers, also considering the updates to PROAG, developed a description of identified barriers and methods to remove those barriers and individuals responsible. And so in our self-evaluation process, we relied primarily on existing data that we were able to utilize from the Greater Madison NPO. And that allowed us to develop an inventory of facilities within the public right-of-way. And this used a combination of existing data sets within the city, as well as ArcGIS, which is a mapping tool. And then we supplemented that mapping tool with aerial photography or spot verifications, Google Street View imagery, and in-person site visits. It would have been infeasible given current resources to do in-person site assessments of our entire pedestrian network, and it also would have taken us a number of years to complete that. So we use the tools that are available to us. That said, there are some limitations to our findings. So using these tools, we cannot evaluate certain compliance features, such as slope and grade. So those are not included in the analysis. But we do have a plan to be able to evaluate those in the future and include them in a plan addendum. And those things may be verified later on with those in-person site assessments. These findings are really based on the elements that were available to us to measure, given the tools and resources that we have available. So our inventory included, we have the numbers here. I could read through all of them, but I'd rather not. Quite a lot of elements within the city, including, over 1,000 miles of sidewalk, over 23,000 curb cuts, over 2,000 pedestrian bike signals, bus stops, driveway aprons. So it was very comprehensive. And we worked very hard to be thorough and also, very transparent in noting in the plan, like where those limitations were given the tools that were available to us. So the scope of our findings for the self-evaluation includes a schedule, an estimated cost, and a timeline to remove access barriers to meet the minimum compliance with PROAG and other relevant standards for the number of curb cuts to be installed, number of locations that need accessible bus pads to be installed. And then we have several ongoing projects within the city that do ongoing improvements. And so that's our traffic signals and street safety improvements, ongoing sidewalk and curb ramp repair and replacement programs. And then we also included some additional recommendations from community members to help the city to move beyond compliance and address resident concerns. So for curb cut installations, and there are interactive map links included in the plan itself, we identified 206 sites within the pedestrian network where there is likely no curb cut. And so it is possible that there is existing barriers to installing a curb cut, and we need to verify that or install a curb cut in these locations. So sometimes the absence of a curb cut is due to a steep grade or other mitigating factors. And so this is where we plan to go out and really investigate these 206 sites in person. And so that self-evaluation will be done by December 31st, 2027, where engineering staff will verify the barriers related to the curb cuts and identify which program, if any, will be used to install the curb cut. And we have a variety of programs available, such as a sidewalk and curb repair and replacement program. So it may just be a matter of replacing a curb cut that is no longer functional. If it's a street reconstruction project, or if it's part of a larger WSDOT project that requires a full reconstruction. And so that site-by-site visit will be included in a plan addendum. Our curb repair and replacement program by 2044, by 2044, we'll complete a full analysis of street reconstructions necessary in order to install compliant curb ramps based on that analysis. And that, again, will be included as the plan addendum. We also identified 11 bus stops that are not fully compliant. It is, I think, important to note that even if a bus stop is not fully compliant, operators can still safely deploy accessible ramps at those bus stop locations. So there is an interim solution, but we are aiming for greater accessibility and compliance. So by November 30th of this year, there is a plan to make those accessibility improvements at 10 stops within the city of Madison in order to bring those stops into full compliance. We also have the traffic signals and street safety improvements program. This prioritizes proven safety countermeasures, including setting speed limits, enhancing crosswalk visibility, improving lighting, and adding traffic calming and safety improvements. Residents can also use the request a safety improvement form on the website. It's linked here. To request audible pedestrian signals, street lighting, street signs, pavement markings, or to report other concerns on the form. I have directed folks to this form, and they've told me that folks are incredibly responsive in terms of getting locations where they would like an audible pedestrian signal added to the city's list for safety improvements. And then we also have our sidewalk and curb ramp repair and replacement programs. So any new projects will, as I mentioned, incorporate ADA and the new PROAG standards with inspections that are carried out during the construction process. In addition to that, the sidewalk repair program fixes barriers like uneven surfaces or raised edges within the sidewalk network. And the replacement program replaces sidewalk squares within Alder districts on a 10-year cycle. So this program is actually quite impressive. Staff go out and they literally walk through the sidewalk system in the 2 Alder districts that are assigned for that year and identify sidewalk areas that need repair or replacement. And so those are included in that year, in addition to any sidewalk concerns that are reported through the sidewalk concern portal, which is also linked here. So there's both a proactive and a reactive component to this process. Lastly, we incorporated feedback that we received from residents at the Disability Summit in 2023 related to the pedestrian right-of-way. And so the additional recommendations are improving compliance with existing requirements for temporary pedestrian facilities and elements in the public right-of-way during construction projects. And so what we will be doing is reviewing our current policies related to standard specifications for public works and construction in order to strengthen the language that's required for construction projects to make sure that there's an accessible right-of-way requirement and that plan is very clear at the time that the request is submitted. So during half the year, we have construction projects. During the other half of the year, we have snow. So it's hard to get around the city sometimes. So the other concern was increasing accessibility and usability of pedestrian facilities and elements in the public right-of-way as they relate to snow clearance, in particular during snow plows, as snow is pushed in front of curb cuts and needs to be cleared after roads are plowed to ensure pedestrian access. So this issue is a little bit more challenging because on the policy side, we are compliant. I think there's a few things that we are going to look at pushing forward. One is making sure that residents know all the resources to report when they need help either clearing snow because they have a disability and it's difficult to clear the snow, or they need to report that snow has not been cleared and that is creating a barrier. And then also working with our streets division to better understand the access needs of folks in terms of where snow is put when it is plowed. So all of that information is included in the plan. And if you have additional suggestions or questions, please feel free to submit public comment or to attend one of the public information sessions. And we'll be digging in much deeper at that session. And of course, you can always reach out if you want to talk or have questions directly to me.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. A lot of additional information in the updated deck that you sent out. So yeah, wow, thanks so much. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. This was great. We have been looking forward to this presentation, and I'm sure there will be more details because there's so much in there. A couple of questions, comments regarding PROAG. So it's my understanding that yes, it's been adopted. I know there's also been executive orders around agencies having to rescind regulations unless they're required by statute, which I have been told by somebody who's more knowledgeable about these things. PROAG is not, so I think there's still a risk that PROAG might be rescinded by the current administration?
I am not aware that PROAG has in fact been rescinded. If I hear that it has been, I will let you know. I think, there are many risks, but I'm operating in the here and now today, and I'm going to keep doing that. So
Yeah, no, it has not been rescinded. It has been that there has been an executive order to tell agencies to look at all the regulations, do some sort of assessment, and then in the end, they have to make suggestions of which ones they're going to cut to come up with a positive budgetary number. So anyway, audible pedestrian signals. So it sounds like currently when people request them, we look into getting them. We do not install them by default when we install new signals.
we do. Sorry if that wasn't clear. So anytime we install a new signal, it is an audible signal. And if we repair a broken one, if we replace a broken one, we put in an audible signal. The way that it works is there's kind of a bucket of funding each year. And so they first take out the new construction and the replacement, and then whatever money is left goes to resident requests. And those get put on a list. And so when there is a number of requests for a particular intersection, that gets prioritized. They also look at safety concerns. There's kind of a matrix that goes along with figuring out if there's more resident requests than resources for that particular year. But the goal is eventually we have a whole city with audible signals, but we wouldn't have the resources in any given year to do that. So we have to do it little by little.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Do we have a target goal for that?
I don't have the answer to that, but I can look into it and see about if we can maybe include that in the plan. I think that would be good information to share if we can project it.
Yeah,
Rebecca, I see Eric Finch has his hand up. Did you have something to add, Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in sort of on the status of federal adoption.
Having trouble hearing you, Eric.
I was just going to make a comment on the status of federal adoption. And my apologies that I don't have my video on and I may be a little hard to hear. But the GSA, the General Services Administration at the federal level, has adopted PROAG. So it does apply to a significant amount of grant funding when we do projects. It also has been adopted by the FTA, the FTA, and applies to our transportation facilities in the transit context. But it has not been adopted by the US DOJ. So that would probably entail things like the sidewalk slope, which is part of the pedestrian access route that's required. So nothing's been repealed. I think we're anticipating the DOJ coming down with a rule on that, and then that would allow engineering to sort of plan how they want to comply with slope and grade requirements, as we reconstruct things throughout the city.
Thank you, Eric.
Eric's braver than I am. I was avoiding that.
Go ahead, Harold. Did you have other things?
So I was going to say that, having target dates for things, I think is a good thing, because sometimes it's good for accountability. It's also good for seeing at the current pace, we're going to have a fully accessible city by 2133. And if that's the case, we got to do something about that. Which brings me to the 2044 deadline for completing the assessment of the curb ramps. Why does that take so long? Because then by 2044 we have it assessed, which doesn't mean we have it fixed by something very far into the future.
Yeah, thank you for the question. There's two deadlines. let me pull the PowerPoint back up. The first deadline is that we would evaluate them by December 2027, and then we would install them by 2044. And the difference between those two dates is essentially funding. So we can complete the evaluation to plan what would need to be done, but we wouldn't necessarily have all of the funding and resources to complete the installations within the same period. And keep in mind that the curb ramp replacement, the sidewalk replacement is a 10-year cycle through the city.
Okay,
And
thanks
Rebecca,
for clarifying.
I see Lieutenant Hannah, Jen Hannah has her hand up too. Do you have something to add, Jen?
I just have a quick question for Rebecca. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just questioning how ProWeg works with special events that are in the city that may close a bus stop or close a street, and what the requirements are for in regards to that. I've spoken with other agencies in cities that have special events like we do, where bus stops or roads are temporarily closed down but then reopened within a certain amount of time, not long-term projects like construction projects that may close something down for a long-term amount of time, but something that's within a day or within a few, like an hour. How does that work with special events? What is the connection between ProWeg and special events like a festival, a race? You get where I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anything that is going to be a temporary disruption in the pedestrian right-of-way has to have what's called an alternative pedestrian access route. And I have it in front of me. It's ProWeg section R303. If folks are interested in more information, but you need to have a accessible alternative path of travel if you are blocking off what would traditionally be the pedestrian right-of-way. So if you're taking up a section of sidewalk, you need to have a smooth interrupted surface that goes in another direction to connect the network. It can't be disrupted.
Okay, and I'm hoping that maybe you and I can talk a little bit more about this offline. Just because the conversations I've had with the federal DOT aren't as stringent as what you're saying necessarily. The information I got from the attorneys that worked on it was that a special event that is for a brief amount of time is not the same thing as a construction project that might be going on for weeks, months, etc. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit more if you wouldn't mind having a conversation about that. Obviously, the city of Madison holds a lot of events that do disrupt traffic and sidewalks and bus stops. And so I just want to make sure that we are in compliance, first of all, but that we are doing what we need to do in order to make those work out for everybody.
Absolutely. I'm here to be a resource, so please feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're back to you, Harold. You still have the floor. I didn't realize it was going to head into a different direction. So go ahead and finish up.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for clarifying the 2044. I think the slides do say the analysis will be completed 2044, but you're saying it's not, the analysis will be 2027, and then we're trying to fix things by 2044. Okay. And then last thing, thanks for including the additional recommendations around, as we just talked about, temporary pedestrian facilities and elements and the winter maintenance. This topic has come up as an interest to the commission multiple times, both with like a purely being ADA compliant, but I think there's also more to that of like, yes, if you have a signed detour, that's legally required and that's good, but why do we make people cross a dangerous street twice if there's like an empty travel lane? What do we do with people biking in these construction scenarios? So I think just ensuring that those conversations don't happen in isolation, and the same with winter maintenance. I mean, this whole point about curb cuts, it's a recurring issue that I think the Streets Division has gotten very good at with the multi-use paths. But yeah, just making sure that those conversations happen not isolated from each other. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to touch on the additional requirements and specifically the curb cuts and that as it relates to snow removal. It's more of an observation comment, but one thing I've noticed is that some of the curb cuts, especially if it's a street that hasn't been redone in a while, or that has had some settling, you can end up with a curb cut where not just in snow, but when it rains heavily, you end up pooling a lot of water in there, and the water doesn't drain away. And so are you thinking about that? Is there any special consideration for that, or is there like a complaint-based system for that? I'm just noticing it can end up like several inches deep to the point where like I don't know how somebody in a wheelchair on crutches could get through there.
I think that's good feedback. We're interested in those types of feedback to make the plan better. So there is feedback to provide information about curb cuts that need repair or replacement, but I don't think we've made that through line to the snow removal issue. So I think that's a good piece of information for us to pull together.
Thank you. That was it.
Thanks, Alder. Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann. I had some of the questions that Harold initially raised regarding the accessible pedestrian signals, that if you do an alteration or a new installation or major repair, that you will put in the accessible pedestrian signals. Rebecca, did you do an inventory of how many signals we currently have in the city that are accessible pedestrian signals?
That information is available. I don't have it on the top of my brain.
No, that's all right. But I mean, it is in the inventory and it has been collected.
Yes, it is in our information.
Okay.
And I can send a follow-up email with that specifically.
Oh, okay. And I think that, I'm going to be interested in that. And I think that I'll plan on participating on the 16th. So that's good to know. I think there's a lot of good information out here that you've given us tonight, but I'm still have some concerns, I guess, or I shouldn't say concerns. I'm not concerned. I think some issues that need to be resolved, I guess, as far as how we do things and the order in which we do and our policies and so forth. So I think when those things, they'll take a little bit of time to figure out, and what obviously our budgets and how much we can afford to do at any particular time or any particular years. I'm thinking just off the top of my head with the accessible pedestrian signals that we currently have in the process is for residents to submit to get a crossing that they use, and that's great. But I'm also concerned as far as priorities are concerned that I think in the downtown area where we are tourist oriented and we have lots of out of town visitors, they're not going to be the ones to complain perhaps of asking for it. But I think it's something we should look and prioritize some of our downtown intersections, let's say, that go to the Capitol and go to the hotels and the restaurants in the downtown area, because we're apt to have our tourists be impacted by those. So that's there's a lot of I just have a lot of information that I'm trying to get into my head as far as where we're at and what we're doing. So I want to take a look at your inventory and how we're doing that. And I think that's great. I appreciate that. So, and traffic was, I assume that if Tom is still on the line or not, he was on before, Tom Moore, but you worked
he's still here.
So that the traffic was involved with your input, Rebecca, correct? Is that a fair assessment?
So I don't want to put Tom on the spot because we did work a lot with Renee. So.
Oh, okay. But people from traffic were involved with.
Yeah, I want to say this is a citywide effort, and we will have folks from different departments at the public information session who will be better than me at answering traffic engineering questions or things like that. So we're collective knowledge base is much better than I think any one individual can offer. But Tom, feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to add.
I'll change subjects just a little bit. I have that same concern, and I'm not sure who raised it, regarding the current status at the federal level, that DOJ has not adopted the rules yet. And yes, I asked that question specifically today to Federal Highway people that had the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and they don't know. Federal Highway does not know. They have not had any conversation. They have done their part, which is relatively not very much. It was more the DOT had the bus pads and so forth. So that was, but most of the other things are Department of Justice. So the way I interpret it, is that you can't be sued right now because it's not been adopted by the DOJ. But that's not I'm not looking to worry about that. I just want to do the right thing, and I think we ought to. I think what we're doing is the right thing and staying out in front of it, regardless of what happens at the federal level, because ProReg is there. I don't see the Access Board rescinding their rulemaking, but it has no statutory enforcement authority. In other words, you can't sue somebody, but they are doing the guidelines are out there right now. So I think that as long as the city is good faith in doing due diligence of trying to comply with ProAg is the best way of going it, regardless of whatever happens at the federal level. We can't worry about it. So anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just
looking forward to the 16th.
I just want to respond and say, like, as your disability specialist, that is my guiding force. I'm just going to do the right thing. There are a lot of question marks at the federal level, at the state level. Until those are definitive directives, I'm just going to do the right thing. So I just maybe I'll say one other change subject a little bit with go back to curb cuts. WSDOT has been going around and doing retrofitting curb cuts on where they are responsible on their state trunk highway or connecting highways that they cross. Have you had it as you or traffic had any transportation had any discussion with WSDOT, with the Southwest region, as far as that we know we're missing curb cuts and any sidewalks that are actually the responsibility of DOT? WSDOT? I don't know if Tom has the answer to that offhand, but that's part of what the analysis and the plan addendum will identify as, really
if we do, I think that would be good to even try to spot those, because like I say, WSDOT is doing retrofit projects and has let contracts in the last couple of years. So I think they, as far as their transition plans that they're doing, and I think we want to know what they're doing. So where it impacts in the city on state trunk highways or connecting highways. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Rebecca, thank you so much. This was both an excellent presentation, and I also am very appreciative of your attitude of mind of just moving forward and doing the right thing. I also really want to thank my fellow commissioners for your level of engagement in these really intelligent and thoughtful questions and comments. It actually is very moving to be later in the queue because there was so much for other folks to say about this. So that's awesome. And I think it really speaks to the TC's growth in embracing these issues over my tenure on it. So I just want to do that kudos to everybody. So I have a question, and then I just have a historical thing that folks might find interesting. The question, Rebecca, I see the path forward on the APS. So what's the path forward on the curb ramps? So you've got the analysis done by 2027 end of year and the replacements by 2044. Wow, I'll be really old by then. I'm curious, like, how is there a decision tree, like a prioritizing, a criteria, so you kind of know how to best attack? I don't need the details on it, but I'm assuming that there's some kind of decision matrix of which curb ramps get dealt with first, second, third.
Yeah, one of the things that we're required to do with the transition plan is to identify priorities. So the public right-of-way section of the plan is part 3, and there is a whole section that talks about prioritization. And so some of it is incorporating the existing priorities of certain programs, but we've also, through the transition plan, are incorporating things like equity and accessibility. So the existing priorities, you folks in this space are probably already familiar with. It's the transition improvement plan priorities. So that is how things will sort of unravel in terms of what gets done first. And then in consultation with Access to Independence and also considering the feedback we received at the summit, we have prioritized addressing facilities that are not accessible, meaning they have no curb cut at all. And then the second priority is facilities with existing accessibility features that are still receiving public complaints. Priority 3 is focusing on ongoing repairs and remedies to make facilities accessible in accordance with the programs that we talked about, the traffic signals and street safety, the sidewalk and program repair and replacement. And priority 4 is high use areas over lower use areas that connect to public transit. And so those are like the key areas that we are identifying as the highest priorities.
Great, that's super helpful. And I just kind of wondered how curb ramps that don't have tactile warning fields, the curb cuts there, but there's no real tactile warning fields, how they're kind of prioritized.
So as I mentioned, the limitations of our analysis, given the tools we have, we don't have a way to assess with the mapping tools, which curb cuts and curb ramps currently have those. So what will happen is as we do these 10-year cycles through the city with the sidewalk repair and replacement programs, is they'll start looking at curb cuts and curb ramps as well to collect some of that information. So I want to emphasize this is a start of collecting the data. We have to start somewhere. And then we can identify additional barriers and plan to address those as we go. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. It just really, it helps kind of knowing, because I know I'll hear from residents like the curb cuts in my neighborhood or this, are terrible. And when are they going to get to that? And so being able to articulate, that I know your curb ramp is important. And, so helping to articulate that sequencing is really helpful.
Well, I think one thing they can do is use those links in the presentation.
Yes.
And that will help us know, and that's part of the public feedback, like the curb cuts in our neighborhood are terrible. We need to get out there and add those to the list of what needs to get fixed. So.
I've been making my list of ones to report. So and then thank you, Rebecca. That's super helpful.
Excuse me, Denise.
Yeah.
Eric has his hand up. Did you have something particular to add on this topic, Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just wanted to really second what Rebecca is saying there, that this is a start to a process, right? This is a public engagement process where we're really seeking to revitalize our ADA transition plan. So there's a major opportunity here for a lot of these discussions, which, I mean, just by the numbers, there's so many things that need to happen. And we're waiting for the shoe to drop on some things, as Bill pointed out with DOJ adoption. And Denise, to your question on like curb ramps, just one thing that I think is a use case that will make sense is we'll probably have better and better AI tools for just quickly identifying, because the field surveying on some of the stuff is just gonna be so difficult. But my hope is that in the next few years, we can get budget and an implementation process for figuring out AI tools that could do this. Maybe that's through ArcGIS. That was just kind of a couple quick notes on that, but very exciting that we're starting this, process of public engagement.
Yes. Yeah, Eric, thanks. That was actually really helpful commentary too. And I'm just thrilled that we're having this conversation and moving this forward and giving people public input. And that was my last comment. Rebecca, you shared the APS request form. I will share that when I requested my first APS, that form lived on the city website. It took me a long time to find it. This was before Yang's time, to folks in traffic engineering who were like, I know we have a form, but nobody could really find it. And when finally somebody found the PDF and shipped it to me as a web link, the form was not screen reader accessible. It had to be printed out and filled out either by being typewritten or handwritten. And, the form is really meant for people who have vision loss to be able to file a request. And so that was a piece of advocacy work a long time ago to have the city make that form accessible. So we've got a long way to go. We've come a long way too. And I really want to highlight that and say thank you. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Denise. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. Rebecca, I forgot during my time to talk, there was an issue, and you raised it and mentioned it as the policy as far as the city is concerned with the projects, work projects that where the city is redoing a street or sidewalks and so forth, as far as trying to make them ADA during the construction. But there was one area that you didn't mention, and I don't know if it's on your had any discussion or and that is with building inspection. I think our developers that are making building improvements or reconstructing or building projects, and they're responsible for the sidewalk. And I think I've seen more issues and problems with not having accessible sidewalks during their street projects or during building projects. And it just seems to me that the only people that really know about it are the building inspectors. So have you had any discussion with the building inspectors about this effort that we're doing?
So you're bringing a new issue to my attention, which is why this collaborative process and public feedback is so important. I've had tons of conversations with building inspections and engineering around public facilities and how we make those accessible, but we haven't crossed the sidewalk yet together. So thank you. I'm going to go back and have more conversations.
During the construction is the first thing they do is they think that that's all of their territory for their building construction, and they tear out the sidewalk and they slap up one sign that says sidewalk closed, and or maybe even use the other side, and that just doesn't get it in many cases because
we have
anyway, that
on
seems...
our to-do list to look at the standard specifications for public works constructions, but I think we need to dig a little deeper to get to the issue you're describing.
The building. Okay. Thank you.
Looks like Tom has his hand up, Bill, to add something. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that is under traffic engineering. So those construction companies have to get a street occupancy permit through our staff. And it is something that is kind of a constant issue, getting the contractors to set it up initially and then keep it set up and not change it. It is a big thing that we're working through, but
I think you need, that's great that you're doing. I'm glad to hear that. And I forgot about the street occupancy permits, but it seems like you folks don't get out to those building projects as often as the building inspectors do. So it seems like that they should be part of the team, and there's no reason why they can't be part of the monitoring team as far as those sidewalks when they go out to do some inspection on the building. And if there is an issue to, whether you folks need to be involved then, or they bring it to your attention or something, because I've seen some absolutely terrible building projects that have just torn up sidewalks for 3-4 months and not do a good job at all of accessible pedestrian accommodation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. A lot of great comments, a lot of good feedback for you, Rebecca, and a lot of great information from you, which everybody's been looking forward to this. So we really appreciate all the current and up-to-date information and those public information sessions. Thanks for posting those. So you said there'll be a press release that will come out?
Yes, we're expecting to send out a press release with the registration links and notice of the public information sessions this week. So I'll go ahead and flag that for Aiden so he can share it with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That way, Bill, you'll be able to register right away, and all the rest of us will have that opportunity to register as well. Any additional comments or questions? And if there's anything that they think about after the fact, if like I'm going to go back and look at the updated presentation again myself, we can contact you directly, correct, Rebecca?
Absolutely. Please feel free.
Okay. Any, oh yeah, poor Rebecca. You're very busy lately, right? Yeah, much appreciated. You've clearly, there's been so much work done on this, and really excellent work to move forward with something that's clearly very important for the city.
Thank you.
So, and the Transportation Commission is very interested in this topic, so we appreciate the updates that you've been providing to us. Okay.
Just one note, if I can, Anne.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Bill made a point about PROAG not applying, because of not having DOJ adoption. But I do think it is, just from a legal perspective, the city is bound to it at this point by both DOT and GSA at the federal level. So any federal dollars we spend that are related to the General Services Administration, we have to, those projects would have to comply with PROAG, and then whenever we modify basically a transportation facility, which is essentially, when you think about it in the city of Madison, that's basically our transit facilities, then those also need to comply, whether or not we receive federal funding. But yeah, the greater piece of this has not been adopted, but we are, in terms of grant compliance and federal funding compliance for our transit agencies, we're required to comply already, and I feel confident that we are in compliance, and we'll continue to maintain compliance with PROAG.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Eric. Very helpful information. A lot of helpful information shared, and a lot of great feedback from everybody on the commission. Any last comments before we move on? Okay, thanks. Next, we have the election of the chair and the vice chair for the next year. Just a reminder that the TC ordinance does allow the chair or vice chair to be an alder, and per the city attorney's office, alternates cannot be selected as chair or vice chair because of their position as alternates. So the floor is open for nominations for chair. No second is required per Robert's rules. Are there any nominations? Robbie?
I would like to nominate Anne to be the chair.
Thank you, Robbie. Alder Martinez Rutherford.
I will second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? For some reason, I'm supposed to ask it 3 times. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close the nominations and select a chair? We do need a motion and a second. Robbie?
I move to close the nomination and unanimously declare Anne the chair.
Seconded.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Harold?
Yeah, I would just like to extend my thanks to you, Anne, for having been a wonderful chair for many years now, and I'm very glad that you were nominated to continue as chair, and I hope you will accept the nomination because, yeah, it's been wonderful to have you as our chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. I will accept for 1 more year. How is that? And we'll reassess after that because my appointment is up in a year, so we will see. Okay, so I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, wishes to abstain, or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. I'll try and continue on working very hard for the Transportation Commission as chair over the next year. So the floor is open for nominations for vice chair. Robbie?
I would like to nominate Chris McCahill as vice chair.
Okay, there's a nomination for Chris. Any other nominations? Bill?
I'll second that nomination.
Okay, there's a second. So we have a nomination for Chris McCahill as vice chair. Any other nominations? Last call for nominations. So we would need a motion to close the nominations and select the vice chair. We need a motion and a second for that. Alder Okovich.
So moved.
Okay. Robbie?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to close the nominations and select Chris as the vice chair. Is there any discussion? Chris?
I think I've said this in the past, but since there's a bunch of new folks, I will say it makes it very easy for me to do this because Anne runs really great agenda setting meetings and prepares great notes in advance of every meeting.
No. Thanks, Chris. Robbie?
I guess I would just like to say thank you to Chris for being willing to do this. I know he's busy and also is on Plan Commission, and I did check with him before the meeting before nominating him to make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
But both of you, thank you very much for being willing to serve in this capacity.
Thanks. And thanks to Chris for being willing to continue as vice chair. It's really helpful to have you and your expertise in that position. So I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote to select Chris as the vice chair, unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, thanks. And thanks much, Chris, again, for being willing to continue on as vice chair. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the crossover reports from TC members who are members of other transportation-related BCCs. Do we have any reports from folks from other BCCs? Harold.
Yeah, the Board of Public Works last week had an agenda item related to High Point Road. The developer there, so we talked about this at Transportation Commission at a little bit of a larger level for the whole development out there. You may remember the discussion, should there be a parking lane? What happens to the number of housing units if there's not a parking lane? Does the parking lane slow down traffic? Does it speed up traffic? And so at the Board of Public Works, that first phase of the development is now going to be built first. It affects basically 300 feet roughly of High Point Road. And it's going to be widened there. And as you may also remember, that the long-term plan for High Point Road is a lane reduction to turn it into a road with one lane in each direction and a center turn lane, but that's far down the road. So the board had a pretty long discussion. There was some public comment whether this poses safety risks, where like we now have a widened road, but it's also a short stretch of the widened road. There were also some questions how the Transportation Commission came to the conclusion that that parking lane should be there and that the cross section should be widened. So yeah, there was healthy discussion. It was approved in the end. I think there were some questions about like, can we do something in the meantime? Can we stripe it in a way that doesn't look wider? Yeah, with to be determined outcomes. But yeah, that's all I had to share.
Thanks, Harold. We've had lots of discussions about High Point Road. Other comments from other BCCs? Okay, thanks.
And
Next we have, oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I just thought of something sort of in a similar spirit. At Plan Commission earlier this week, there was a development approved, a large housing development that folks might have seen in the news at the Beltline and Verona Road. And one of the conditions was related to safety of putting the building in that location, so close to large roads. So there was some discussion about whether that development could be placed there and meet the conditions of safety. Ultimately, it was approved unanimously by the Plan Commission, but just wanted to flag for folks that those kinds of conversations are happening in other spaces.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments from other BCCs? Okay, thanks. Just a reminder that Christoph Spieler was selected as Madison's new Director of Transportation, and that was confirmed at the Common Council meeting on June 17th. It's my understanding that his first day at the city will be July 21st, so we'll look forward to meeting him and having him here at one of our Transportation Commission meetings. And that was really all I had in terms of announcements. In terms of future agenda items, I wrote a note to touch base at our agenda meeting on safety concerns on Williamson Street and Jennifer Street to see when we might have that conversation come back to TC. Anybody have any other? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just say this. In terms of the July 9th meeting, at this point, we just have two. I'm just tracking two items on our agenda log, and they're not action items. So I'm waiting to see the council agenda for the next meeting to see what referrals we might have from TC. So we'll keep you posted on that. Does anybody have any other agenda items? I noticed that one of our agenda items is an update regarding public right-of-way accessibility guidelines as it relates to construction, sidewalk replacement program and construction. So we got some good updates, I think, from Rebecca about that. Denise, go ahead.
I don't have another agenda item, Anne, but I'm just letting you know I'm on vacation the 9th, just so also if you're monitoring quorum.
Okay. Yeah, please let us know, because with the 4th of July on that Friday, I'm not sure how many people will be available next week. Chris, go ahead.
I will also not, we're talking about the 9th?
July 9th, yes.
Okay, never mind. I think we're okay.
Okay. Anybody else not going to be available on July 9th?
I will not be available.
Okay. If we only end up with a couple of agenda items, we may choose to cancel that meeting. And, we schedule a lot of meetings during the year, and we, reserve the right if it doesn't look like it's going to be efficient for folks to meet, then we, we try and take those off the calendar so that we're not pulling you in for just one or two items.
And just the 9th is okay for me, but then the 23rd, I definitely will be gone.
Okay. I'll take notes on these. So we got Denise gone on July 9th, Harold not available on July 9th, and Bill not available on July 23rd. This happens during the summertime. I was trying to schedule something with some family members, and wow, I think we found 1 week during the summer where we were all available. So yeah, we'll see that, I'm sure, coming from people during the summer. Okay. Anybody have anything else with regard to future agenda items? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn. Harold.
So moved.
Okay, Robbie.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote to adjourn. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Great meeting as usual.